Hi, everyone. It's Monday. It's snowy or has snowed in Denver, which every time, and if you're not familiar with Denver, I always think this is the last snow, and within a week, I'm proved wrong again. So it's the kind of place where if you don't like the weather, wait a few minutes, it'll change. With that said, I'm so proud and honored to have Con with us again. If you don't know Con, you should. If you do know Con, you know what I'm talking about. Today's show is really focused on what's near and dear again to Con's heart, which is employee engagement and how really important that is in today's changing times and fast-paced marketplace. So chat's wide open. Look forward to hearing what you have to say. Help us direct our conversation and thoughts to you. Hopefully provide some quality takeaways. So with that, Con, why don't you share a little bit of an update and also your initial thoughts on employee engagement?
Don, thank you. First of all, happy Monday, my friend. Happy Monday. What a way to kick off the week. It is indeed out here. We've been bombarded with this latest snowstorm out here, and it makes things very, very interesting in our landscape. But I don't think we're the only ones. I have a feeling that this one spread far and wide into the Midwest and into other areas. So, for everybody out there, be safe as you're traveling around, as you're moving around, knowing that you want to be able to make sure you get there from one point to the next. So as far as today goes, that's kind of an inspiration about what you and I were talking about off camera today, Don. That confidence, that need, if we're going to get from point A to point B, having that confidence that we can. And whether that's the trust that we have in the tools that we use, our vehicles, or whatever the case might be, in our teammates. For example, I'm looking outside. If it wasn't for the snow plows, for the people out there shoveling, doing what they need to do to clear path for the rest of us, wow, how would we feel about this? So that's a big part of it, but also confidence in ourselves, confidence in our ability that we are going to show up. I mean, I look at it and I'm just at awe with you, my friend. At 11 Eastern every day, you're there. And that's almost like clockwork. And that gives people the confidence. They know that you're engaged in what you're doing. They know that you're going to show up. And they know that they can rely on you. And that gives our audience, our community, a huge amount of confidence that they have a place to go, that they have a place to be every morning, to be able to be there and have a conversation and listen in to those good conversations. And it seems like already our community has responded with some good comments early on, and seeing where we start off.
Well, thank you, Con. I mean, you're just such a wealth and resource for quality information, relevant information. And just by kicking it off with the word confidence, we'll create the word of the day, which is confidence, underneath the umbrella of employee engagement. What comes to mind, and that's the beauty of being able to relate this to so many other things, is this was the big weekend for the NCAA basketball tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And confidence is key. I've seen some great teams go down because teams that were not matching up physically were more than matching up intellectually, psychologically. And every winning coach that I had the ability to listen to the after the game thought was that confidence in the locker room, was that team, was that community. So having a superstar and not having a team together is not a very good team. And I think you can relate that to business, is you've got some really quality leaders who don't know how to rally the troops, who don't know how to bring people together, who don't know how to understand before they're willing to be understood. And I think that's so important, is so many people don't listen. They do a lot of talking. They're there physically, but they already have an agenda in mind. They already have one size fits all. And if you want to be a success today, you have the access and the capability to leverage things like live streaming, like LinkedIn, and really demonstrate who you are and who you can be for others.
Right.
So with that said, Dave's here. Can't say enough about Dave. If you don't know Dave, you should. He's part of our collaboration group that meets every other Thursday. He's actually going to be on Wednesday, which is what he does is alternate with Carl Dakin, who if you don't know, is in Belize this week.
Mm.
He's an adjunct professor at DU, Denver University, and Colorado State University. He's taking, I believe, 30 students to relate to real estate in Belize compared to here. So it's not all fun, but it is interesting. And, we do seem to attract some very diversified individuals who are on different channels and directions. So Dave, thank you for being here. I've seen Dave grow so much in the last few weeks, and that's what's gratifying. That's what allows me to do this so often, is the growth potential of people talking and working as a team together to make things happen. With that said, another star on LinkedIn is Omar. Omar has the Zoom Party show. If you don't know, you should check Omar's show out. You should check Omar out. He's such a valuable, giving person, so thoughtful, helps kids in so many ways, does tutoring during the week. And, that's, the real value is looking under the surface, because everybody's got the best surface they can provide, but can they back it up with consistent activity? So with that said, Con, looks like we got so many opportunities and directions to move today.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about the point that you just made. That's part of what confidence is. We can go in a lot of different directions. People on the surface talk a big game, but it's the ones that truly show up day in, day out, that really give you the confidence that you can rely on them, that you can trust them, that you can be there. It's that team, that basketball team, that sports team, that business team, whatever the case might be, where you know that people are going to show up and give you their best. It's not that everybody talent-wise may be at the same level, but is their heart, their effort, their commitment to the team there? And that's a big part of what creates this high-performing team, Don. It's not just a team of high performers. That's a very different thing. You see the difference between some of these all-star teams that are manufactured to come together, and yet there are times when they fall to teams with quote-unquote lesser talent, but much greater collaboration, connection between themselves, and confidence in each other, that they have a shared mission, a shared vision of what they're trying to accomplish, and they truly believe in each other, and they show up for each other. I mean, history is full of those kind of stories. They inspire us. They give us everything that we want and need to be able to move forward. Because let's face it, not everybody has the God-given talents to be able to execute at a high level. That may not be in our control. But how hard we work, how much we commit ourselves, what we do, the consistency, that is very much in our control.
Oh, absolutely. And, when you look at sports, and again, that's just one example, you also see how they celebrate when they win.
Mm-hmm.
And in business is the same way. When you do something significant, when you do things together, there's got to be a party of some sort.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a crazy party, but, recognition goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to do just simple things together. One of the coaches from Oakland University, which is outside of Detroit, where I'm from, he said the night before the game, they took everybody bowling.
Mm.
Right? Just to get out of their head, to go out, have some fun, hang out with each other. And, when you're looking out for everybody and everybody's looking out for you, you don't have to worry.
Yeah.
Right? When someone's got your back and you know it, you can just go out and do the best you can with what you have. If you got to start thinking, you're getting distracted.
Mm-hmm.
And it only takes one bad shot, one inability to perform to your highest level. And then there's humility, right? I see a lot of teams win and they go out of the way. You see the coaches shake hands, give each other congratulations. The teams shake hands.
Yep.
And it's that one superstar who thinks they're above everything, that really can't make for a winning team. And, the Nuggets, if you take an example, which has been a challenging team for so many years until they put together this team. And everybody's talking about Jokic. But what's interesting, he's an anomaly. Yep. He doesn't fit the role. He can't jump, right? But he does everything in a way that no one else has ever done.
Mhm.
And he gets the admiration and support of his teammates. But what happens is when he's done with his season, he goes back to Serbia and he trains horses. And they asked him, "What are you going to do with your bonus money?" He said, "I think I might buy one more horse." Right? So he's not buying a $40 million mansion. He's not buying supercars, even though he does, because he's humble. He knows how lucky he is to be where he is, because you don't typically get to where you are the way he came through.
Mhm.
And I think that's what's so important about companies, to find those team members who don't fit the mold,
Yeah.
right? That aren't familiar to people, but if you give them a chance and you give them an opportunity to grow and learn and change for the better,
Mhm.
they're going to be with you forever. And I think
Absolutely.
that's important. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Con.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jokic is an example of one of those leaders on the court that makes everybody around him better. I mean, he is just as happy to be able to be the provider of an assist to let somebody else score on his team than he is anything else. He's willing to take on that burden and take on that extra defender on him to free somebody else up. These are the things that we do and we look for the leaders on our team. And a lot of times those leaders are not the ones with the titles. It's the people that we look around to be able to identify who's the person that everybody's looking to see their reaction when when a problem happens. Who's the one that people really pay attention to and want to listen to? Who's the one that others will follow? That's the leader on your team. These are the people that when they feel confident, they give confidence to other people. They allow others to say, okay, we got this. We got this. And that's what you expect from your leaders. And when we talk about leaders, the people that lead these teams, now in that capacity as managers or supervisors or as directors, whatever they can may be, or as business owners, how are they instilling that confidence in their team? How are they inspiring their team to feel better? I mean, you mentioned it earlier. Some of these coaches, they know their X's and O's, but they can't motivate their team out of a paper bag. And that's a big difference because so much of that effort at that time is heart. It relies on emotion and engagement, just like motivation. These are intrinsic things. They're not things that people can do to you. They have to come from inside you. So as a leader, the only option you really have is to create the kind of environment where people can feel engaged, they can feel motivated, they can feel inspired to act in a certain way. That's all you can do. You can lay it out there, you can create that environment, you can show people how they can win in their own way that they want to win, and then keep cultivating that, keep feeding that in all the different ways. Use your levers, show people that they're valued, show people that they are part of the team, that they're connected to each other and their goals matter to the team. Show them how they can be successful and productive, put them in the right spot so they can excel and use the systems within the team to be able to execute, and ultimately show them how they can continue to grow as people, as professionals, as whatever they want to be, as athletes in the case that we're talking about. These are the levers that we need to be able to use as leaders to truly instill that confidence in our team and then feel confident that our team will show up and give their best. These are the things that matter, Don.
Oh, for sure. And I'd be remiss without sharing your book with everybody. Con, it's employee blueprint. I mean, and what motivated you to write this book?
Well, to me, coming out of the difficult years that we had, my first book was all about how do we navigate those crises, the changes that hit us. But once we were out of that stretch, out of the difficult period of the crisis, it's not that we have a shortage of crises, but the next one that came up was one for employers where people were dissatisfied, people were disengaged. That level of disengagement was constantly growing, and now people were leaving in the millions. That great resignation that we talked about, or even after that, when people weren't leaving per se, but they were still quiet quitting, as the term became known, where they were truly just disengaged, even though they were there. And I realized that there's a significant problem here. If we are going to come out of this and be ready to operate and execute at a high level, most of my clients were asking that question, how do I manage this? And I realized that the work that I've been doing with my client organizations over the years has really set them up for success. And through the research, through everything else, I discovered that, hey, I've been doing this for 3 decades, but now here are the data. Here's the statistics that show that there is value to this. When you create the right environment, it will weather any storm. And that's part of what motivated me to get the message out there, because it was time. And even though there's a lot of books, Don, that have been written about engagement from a personal standpoint, this was about what can a leader do? What can a business owner do to be able to create the kind of environment where people will feel engaged? They will give their best. How do you build that culture of commitment and performance? Because at the end of the day, leaders want to have that confidence that what they give towards their teams, they will receive back from them, that people will be able to kind of really, really be able to give their best. So how do you win their hearts and minds? That's what this was all about. I've seen it with my teams in business. I've seen it with my kids' teams in sports. These are the things that really bring forward the need for that kind of environment. Everybody deserves to be in the kind of place where they really look forward to being with their teammates, to really look forward to going to work on Monday. I mean, I know a lot of people that yesterday, being Sunday for us, were really struggling just with the thought that they were going to have to go to work on Monday. I mean, if you have that knot in your stomach, if you are feeling ill just about the fact that you have to go to work, that means you're operating in a toxic environment. And honestly, nobody deserves to operate in that. We spend so much time in our life, in our workplace. We deserve to be in a workplace that will really inspire us, that will allow us to give our best, that we can look around and be actually excited about being there. That's why I wrote the book. We can transform these workplaces for the benefit of the employers and the employees to make it truly a better place.
Well, it's so important today to have a blueprint, and by having the engagement blueprint that you promoted, gives people maybe a new perspective. And, the words that stick out from what you were just saying is have to, and when you have to do anything versus want to do something, I got to go there because whatever, but if I had a choice, I wouldn't.
Right.
There's better things I feel I should be doing with my time and I'm not. And, that has collateral damage. Because it's, people are people. That's a good thing and a bad thing, but they have feelings.
Yeah.
And when someone says, well, I wish I was going to my kid's baseball game, but I got to go to work today, for someone who doesn't even know I got a kid or a baseball game or care if they did, it affects your whole perspective in the people around you, in the people you're working for. And it's not very motivating. So, in some ways, people should do things for people because it's better for them in the long run. Right? I've had my son, who's always been a great athlete. Now he's a coach and a general manager. He was on teams that if you were up by 20, he still wouldn't get in. And if you're down by 20, he still wouldn't get in. And that was in high school. And if you were on the football team, you couldn't play starting basketball team, even though you were better. But, I'll give him credit for one thing. In the 12th grade, he didn't leave his high school. He went to Evergreen High School after school, joined their lacrosse team, and became superstar. So I got to thank that basketball coach for being so demotivating and making him have to drive an extra 20 miles every day back and forth to be part of a team. So sometimes bad things turn into motivating factors for good things. And at the end of the day, which is so lacking today in so many places, is integrity.
Yeah.
It is standing up for what you believe in, having beliefs that serve you well, and that over time will distinguish you and differentiate you from the people who are the shortcutters, the cheaters, the less than honest people. And I think, social media doesn't promote transparency. It creates a lot of opaqueness.
Mhm.
But there's the opportunity when you go to the side that no one's playing on because it's a little harder, it takes a little longer, have to do things. But at the end of the day, today in the workplace, you're working for yourself no matter who's writing a check.
Yeah.
Even if you could accommodate and compromise and suck it up, there is no 30-year watch anymore. There isn't
Right.
watch your step and you'll be here and you'll have a great retirement. And knowing that really impacts loyalty, right? If I know you're not, it's just the opposite of what we started from. If I know you're not backing me up, and if anything, you might be looking for something I have,
Mhm.
I'm going to be on the defensive. I'm going to start doing things that are counterproductive for myself or the company. And if you own a company, is that the kind of company you want to be responsible for? I
Mhm.
doubt it. So Kerry's here. Kerry's a great guy. I'll share one joke. Kerry says, "How do chickens stay fit? They exercise." Very good. It's a good way to start Monday, especially when it's breakfast time for a lot of people. So, with all this live streaming, how do you see that changing your approach to communication?
Well, think about it this way. You mentioned that the opaqueness of social media, and it's easy to show up at one point and put a facade forward. I mean, how many people watch social media and see their neighbors, their friends, people that they know or they don't know, putting together some sort of a best case scenario or a best version of themselves, putting the highlights of the celebrations, of the vacations, of their successes, signing contracts, doing all that stuff, the tip of the iceberg. But very few people see what happens underneath. For every success, for every overnight success that we've had, how many hours and years have we put in to get to that point? And for all of those people that are just putting forward their polished selves, how many times have they struggled underneath? And for the most part, it's very easy to do that with social media because you only catch snapshots or you're very selective. You have an edited version of yourself out there. But confidence in who you are and what you represent comes from consistency. I look at what you've been doing now for what, 700 episodes? You've come out 700 times. It would be quite difficult, if not impossible, for you to cheat people and present something that you're not over 700 episodes. So that consistency gives people the confidence, A, that you're going to show up, and B, that you are who you are. Because by now, anybody that's followed you for any period of time knows what to expect. And that again gives people confidence in what they can do. They may not always like what we have to offer, but at least they know what we have to offer. And when we are authentic, when we are ourselves, when we are consistent in that way, we give people the confidence of what to do. Now, with the live piece, you can be a little bit more authentic because you don't have the luxury of editing things and putting together the best parts of whatever it is that you've prepared for people. Here, you have to really be able to think on your feet, communicate. And the best way to do that is to be able to tap into that consistent truth inside you. If you are trying to make things up on the fly, that makes it very, very difficult. Live has a way of really zooming in and seeing what people are all about. I've watched the people that sat next to you, Don, in addition to you, and they are who they are. And that comes through. And that is what we represent. And that is a big part of what people appreciate in a live environment. I mean, how many times have, you read a magazine or an article about somebody, and then all of a sudden you see them in a live interview and you really start seeing the real person. You really start seeing what's happening there. So to me, LinkedIn Line represents an opportunity to be much more authentic in your way, much more unpolished, if you will, but truly the gems will still shine through. The golden nuggets that you may have to offer somebody will come through in that opportunity that you have.
So right. And what comes to mind is transferability,
Mhm.
right? What you've been able to be successful in one area, can you transfer into a new medium?
Mhm.
Can you transfer to new people? What comes to mind again, since somehow sports is taking precedence in my thought today, is if you take a John Elway, again, we're talking Denver,
Mhm.
And actually, I was one of the individuals who was invited to his rookie party
Hmm.
at KOA. And we met, and he was 22 years old at the time. But at the time, he was also picked by the New York Yankees and offered a contract.
Hmm.
So he could have played baseball, and he would have if he wouldn't have been able to get to Denver, because he made a commitment he wasn't going to Indianapolis,
Right.
who had drafted him.
Right.
And then if you take a Bo Jackson, who played both baseball and football, and Deion Sanders played baseball and football, again, a CU coach here,
Hmm.
and the ability to come to a show without a script, without an expectation, and say, fire away. I love being able to think in the moment, act as people move with me. And there is a factor in sports and in business that supports momentum, right? There's a
Yep.
lot of times it takes a while for the wheel to start turning, and at a certain point you can't stop it. With that said, someone who epitomizes hard work and really one of the best people I've been able to meet, and Harvey's in our collaboration group, is Harvey Tuck. He's got the franchise show on Tuesdays following this. He just created another show on Thursdays with Simon Wise, I believe. Actually, Harvey, I had Kevin Ayers on Friday, who's another friend of yours. And also Penny was here on the show Friday participating. So Harvey's another person you should reach out to, and he's got so many great starting opportunities, sponsoring his show, guesting on his show, doing so much. And Harvey and Con, and I can keep naming people, Dave and Carl, they just set the pace for us. We're just learning as we're going, but as you can learn collectively and leverage that over time, you're going to learn faster, better, and this is a team. So thank you, Harvey. We've got another Carrie. Hello, Harvey. Carrie's always very nice in that way. So when you look towards the future, Con, and I think as you get older, you tend to be more selective in the choices you make, the activities you make. And I think the other thing that can't go without saying is balance, right? My life is complete. Everything helps and supports each part of it. So whether it's family, whether it's work, whether it's just being friends with people and having activities, if Monday morning comes and you're not jumping out of bed, you got to figure, where am I jumping to that doesn't make me want to jump? So what's your thought on balance in life and in work?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that. As much as I love the word balance, because I think there is tremendous value in that. When I work with clients, because I work with a lot of executives that come to me in hopes of balancing their work and life. And the conversation that I have with them is, first of all, it is a misnomer in the sense that work and life are not the same. They're not equal, not by a long shot. Even though in our society today, work has taken such a front row seat in everything that we do until it's too late, and then you start realizing the value of your family. And so for a lot of them, I try to explain that your work needs to fit into your life. What we're talking about, rather than a balance, is truly an integration of all of the things that make us who you are. What you were describing earlier, Don, is a mosaic. It's a mosaic of the different hats that you wear. You wear your hat here at work. That's one hat. You have a different hat as a family man. You have a different hat as a friend. You have a different hat as a mentor. You have a different hat as an entrepreneur. All of these are parts of who you are, but they're not necessarily all equivalent per se, but they make up who you are. And there's a story that I share with people about, someone who had traveled far and wide, traveled up to the Himalayas to actually go and discover the meaning of life in the ancient realm up there, in a lot of the places where he had heard people would live for very, very long time, over 100 years. And he landed in this village with his interpreter and basically went to this woman that was considered to be well over 100 years old and seeking out the meaning of life. And he went up to her tent and everything, and there was a fire burning, and they sat around, they had a warm beverage. And as they're starting to come to talk about things, he asked the interpreter to say, okay, grandmother, can you explain to me the meaning of life? I'm seeking balance, she says. I'm seeking balance for myself. And she kind of looked at him puzzled after she heard the question. And he said, balance. And he kind of makes this sign like balance. And she looks at him puzzled, and then she breaks out in this huge laugh. And she says something to the interpreter, and he starts laughing. And all of a sudden, they turn to him because he's quizzical. He says, what did I say that made her laugh so much? He says, well, in our culture here, this means dead. And that's probably about the only time that everything is flatlined like that. He says, life is full of ups and downs. The same way in the hospital, when you have a heart monitor, you don't want to see this. You want to see that up and down constantly. It's the same in life. Because to me, life is most well experienced in the contrasts. It's the ups and downs. If you don't have enough of the bad, just enough of that, you don't appreciate the good. If you don't have enough of one thing, you may not appreciate its opposite. And that's the part that I try to help those that I coach with understand, that work and life should be integrated, not try to be balanced out from the perspective. You mentioned earlier about the example with the person wanting to go see their kid's baseball game. You know what? They should be able to. They should be able to go that, because guess what? That same person is probably going to wake up in the middle of the night thinking about one task that they had to do. Maybe they'll run over to their laptop and start typing away. Or they'll work hard that weekend and give up their personal time to come in and pitch in and help because we have a big opening on Monday. Or whatever the case might be, we need, as leaders, as employers, as employees, as people, we need to embrace this integration. We see our workplaces everywhere evolving. We have this new hybrid model of working where sometimes people are in person, sometimes they're working virtually, but we need to be able to seamlessly integrate it in a way that helps all of us be at our best. That's a big part of this. That's how I see this concept of work-life balance, Don.
Well, that's a beautiful story to begin with, and that's a story I'll probably get to use somewhere when it relates to it. So I want to thank you for that gift. And I also believe that there is no real good or bad. I always find losing, if you want to call it that, is learning, or it has an opportunity to learn. Winning gives you some confirmation and validation. It doesn't make you a winner the next time you play, but it can say you played well enough to win this time. What did you do different? What could you do again? It's constantly reviewing, revising, coming up with the new addition. People don't want to see the same person they saw last time, because it's like a movie. Once you saw it once, the second time isn't, to most people, as enjoyable because there's not many surprises. But at the same time, you can get fascinated. I know so many people are money motivated, and that's not a bad thing, but it can't be the only thing. And getting back to the employee who has a child playing baseball, well, to a supervisor or a manager, well, hell, if you go away for 2 hours, that's 2 hours worth of work we won't get done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they forget that that person has a husband or wife. That person has other family members. And if Joe says, hey, I got to the game because my boss says it's okay, pretty soon the wife is thinking, hey, you don't have a bad boss there. And the kids appreciate it because, hey, Dad, I never thought you'd be here, and you made it, right? How much compensation is that has no monetary real value to someone who says, I'm not going to take a chance, leave this place, leave this person, and go somewhere where I'm just time for money and I can be replaced at any time? Because again, there's that human element. And there's also, I'm still going through the Stephen Covey 7 Habits of Effective People, and it's all about building emotional reserve. because that'll build trust. If I keep doing really good things for you just because I want to, but just because I feel you deserve it with nothing in return,
Right.
you're going to say, well, geez, he gave me 7, 8 opportunities and everything else. I just heard he's having an issue. I heard he might be in a hospital, right? Why not take
Yeah.
the afternoon and visit? Why not send flowers? Because it's a way of thanking somebody in turn instead of just being win-lose, you know? And I
Yep.
think that's so important because you got to look at everything you do either get you closer to where you want to be or further away. With that, Dennis is always close because Dennis is here pretty much every day. Agree hard work, but listening and learning from you is easy work that works. And, you know, Dennis is a gentleman who's had the same business for 47 years out in Aurora, Colorado, has a great family, you know, who have taken it over. And, you know, he is a sage because anytime you do something for that long, that well, to be in business after 47 years, I mean, you go back 47 years, it was a different world, right? You had to adopt or adapt to technology, to new ways of doing things. And if you
Mhm.
know, and he's done that. So never question history, right?
Right.
Never question experience. I know it doesn't have the same value to some people because they don't have any experience and they don't understand what it is, but I think that's changing as people like Con, people like myself come on the show and not share our experience per se, but what it has allowed us to become, right?
Right.
Is that we're the kind of like the finished product of everything we've experienced. And because of that, we decided to adopt the persona we have, the way of going to work. And, you know, if you're a business out there, especially if you're looking for quality change, you should check Con out. Why not? If you already know you have a challenge or an opportunity you don't really know how to fully take advantage of, buy some vowels before you solve the puzzle. Get some new insights. If anything, you'll just get, hey, what you're doing is just great and I'm all for it. Or, hey, I saw a couple things you might want to be aware of. And, you know, I think
Right.
that's important because you only have one chance at times in situations. Only got one move. And if you don't make the move, it moves for you or against you. Why not open your mind, open your company? And I think that's another thing. When you bring outsiders in, it says two things. You trust the outsider, but you also trust your team, you know? And
Yeah.
too many people want to keep it all in house, just invented here. And maybe in old days when change were more glacial and took forever to happen, you could get away with it. But today it's not possible. So, Con, how do you
Mm.
see dynamic change impacting what you do and how you do it?
Well, it's funny. You mentioned some of those things, and there's so much to unpack there. So many golden nuggets there, Don. But I'll start with the last one about opening up your company. Um, a couple of expressions come to mind when I think about that. One of them is that it's very difficult, if not impossible, to read the label from inside the bottle. Sometimes when you're in the thick of things, it's really hard to be able to see the signs and see the real problems that are happening. And to take that one step further, I believe it was Einstein that said, you can't solve a problem with the same mindset that created it. And that's why sometimes having an outside perspective, whether it's a friend that you're asking that's not intimately involved with a lot of that stuff, somebody you trust, that you reach out to and say, hey, I have this problem. What are your thoughts? What would you do in my shoes? Or if it's a consultant, an expert, somebody that, again, you might know, like, and trust, that can come in and offer you that level of perspective that you just can't have when you're working with your team and you still keep churning in the same problems and the same mindset that created it. Sometimes you need that somebody to come in and say, hey, ask that dumb question or point to the obvious thing that's in front of you that you just really haven't seen, or you've ignored it because it's right in front of your face. Again, not to add another cliche, but they say that fish are the last ones to discover water. Why? Because they're in the thick of
Mhm.
it. They take it for granted. It's there. And so having the opportunity to bring experts in, to bring people in that will help you. You know, we have our friends here that we talk about that. You know, if I have questions about franchising, I'm going to reach out to Harvey. If I have questions about, how do I raise capital for my company, I want to reach out to Carl. If I have questions about cybersecurity and being a little bit more human and dealing with some of those things, I may reach out to a lot of our different friends that we have in our group right now. And even here, we have our Dave. Dave's amazing with cybersecurity, with a lot of things that he has to do. There are things that I can't be expected to know everything from that. I'm not an expert in all of that stuff. If I do it long enough, I can build an expertise like our friend Dennis. But at the end of the day, I'm not an expert in everything. Sometimes it's a matter of knowing who to call. Who do you have in your stable of friends, in your connections, to be able to connect with and find answers? I mean, if I wanted a question about how to run a LinkedIn Live, I'm coming to you, Don.
Well, I'm so proud to have you with me. And I think you bring up a quality point. By association, you get validation. So if I've spent 8 months with Harvey, and I know Harvey to be a high quality, high integrity, hardworking person, that alone should be, well, hey, if he met Don's qualifications or standards, he probably meet mine. And I think that's important, is you always trust the third person you trust, right? If you get to know Con and know, like, and trust him, anything Con says, and I think that's where referrals come in. That's where how you can get in front of something is if some superstar says, hey, this is the coffee I drink every day. You're going to say, well, if it's good enough for Brad Pitt, it probably is good enough for me if I love Brad Pitt, right? Because everything associated with that will be let's say, a flavor of his,
Right.
I mean, how many people go to, 10 best restaurants in town if you want one and you've never been to that town, and, or some celebrity who says that, and, the recommendation makes it more of what it could be than just you and it. Because if I tell you, hey, there's a great Italian restaurant, I just love the place, they're great people, they serve wonderful food. Going in, you're going to think, well, I'm going to meet some great people, I'm going to have some wonderful food, and you probably will. But if I say, hey, I checked it out, it's okay, nothing special. If you decide to drop in, you're going to already come in with the thought, hey, it's okay, but it's nothing special, and it probably will be. There's a story that, about a guy comes to a new town, and he asked some wise person there, well, what kind of town is this? And the person says, well, what kind of town have you just come from? Well, everybody was mean and angry and, hateful. He said, well, you'll see those same people here. And the next traveler comes in, asks the same question. He says, well, where are you from? He said, well, where I was from, everybody was friendly and nice and cordial. We got those people here too, right? And I think at that point, it's up to you to help yourself, help others help you, and I think that doesn't happen as often. I think people don't have the time because they don't make the time. Everybody says, I don't have any more time. It's like everybody's got 24 hours. What are you doing with it? What is it doing for you? Where could you improve? And I think Con brings in a certain objective perspective that it's like, for a company, you open a window, you get some fresh air, get some fresh ideas. It's not like, and again, it's perspective. If someone says, well, it's going to cost us money, it's a distraction, we're going to have to dedicate time, we're going to have to learn something. Well, where are you investing now? And what is it doing for you? And, people have to trust themselves to see and feel what is actually happening around them. And at any time they could say, well, we gave it a shot, we learned a little bit. Or some people say, hey, let's do more of this. Let's have someone be the agent of change. Con?
Well, it's funny, we started off our conversation talking about, the cost emotionally of not being with an engaged group, whether it's your team or the company you work for or whatever the case might be. There's a toll on there. When you are constantly uneasy because you don't know if you can trust the people around you, if you don't have the confidence in the people around you that they're going to show up and help you or be part of what you've agreed to do, that's difficult enough. I mean, I've met a lot of the companies that I've supported and worked with through these transitions, whether it's a massive change that they've had to undertake or now dealing with engagement and try to keep their best and brightest so they can compete. You know, I work with them and I help them understand that we have to get beyond the transactional. You can't operate from a quid pro quo standpoint. Okay, you show up, I'll pay you your paycheck. You do this, I'll give you $5 extra. You can't, that's not sustainable. Our human nature demands, if we're going to reach higher levels, to operate at our higher level of self. And to do that, we have to take care of people's needs and create that kind of environment we can get there. But when I deal with companies that are still in that transactional mode, and they're wondering, okay, why should I bring you in? You know, I've never met a solid business, successful business person that I mentioned to him. I said, look, give me $1, I'll give you 5, that said no to me. I've never had that. It's just a matter of them understanding what this is costing them. I mean, for American businesses last year, disengagement cost them $350 billion in lost productivity. Across the globe, it cost companies $7.8 trillion in lost productivity because of disengagement, because of people. They only had 1 in 5 people truly engaged, and they have the rest of them either along for the ride or even worse, creating problems, poking holes in the boat, spreading cancer and toxicity within their environments. You know, when you bring it down to home, those numbers may seem tremendous, and you're like, okay, what's that got to do with me? Well, I challenge any business owner, any leader out there to look at it and say, you know what? Hey, if I've got 5 people on my team or 500, you know what? If only one of them is engaged and one of them is truly disengaged on the other end, and the rest of them are kind of sort of there, depending on what kind of environment they're looking for, they could go either way. Well, that one disengaged person out of 5 is costing you a third of their annual salary, 34%. Every $10,000 you pay that person, you're losing $3,400 on the back end from lost productivity, and God knows what else from the poison that they might be spreading to the rest of your team. So do the math and realize that, you know what, it's not just a nice to have anymore, to have a good environment, to have an environment that's empowering and engaging for people. It's got to be more than that. You got to look at it and look at it's impacting your bottom line. If you're trying to make payroll on Friday, if you're desperate to try to make sure that you stay in the black, if you want to get ahead in business and win in the marketplace, you got to take care of your workplace. You got to take care of the people that are part of that, because they're the ones that are going to get you there.
So true. So very true. And you know what that relates to is participation. Like I mentioned earlier, if your kid's on a team, which used to break my heart, I even asked my son, you want me to talk to the coach? He said, no, don't get involved. I can handle it. It's okay. He didn't want to get embarrassed, or he didn't want me to do something that may not be able to undo, is by bringing people into the game who typically don't play. You know, and participation comes in different way. Equity makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Performance bonuses make a difference. You know, people will play if there's a win possibility to it. But if you say, hey, you're not important, you just support people, you stay on the sidelines, well, you've already created a limited situation for them, almost an invitation to leave, because the future's already been spelled out. But, you know, just having them participate, having them get in the game, having them part of something, and recognizing them. You know, there was somebody, I think it was Agmandino, a famous motivating speaker, and he said to everybody, how many people are in sales here? And maybe 20% of the people raise their hand. He said, no, everybody's in sales. Either you're selling or you're supporting someone who's selling, right? So whatever position you play is essential for the whole team. And there's also something to retention, right? The grass isn't always greener. I had people with me 18 years up to 30 years, you know, that came in as right out of high school or right out of college and worked their way up. and I wouldn't
Mhm.
trade them for any newfangled player who wasn't going to be, who was just taking advantage of opportunities and not really thinking team. Because when you
Mhm.
don't have to rehire, when you don't have to retrain, it takes so
Yeah.
much orientation
It's huge.
to get to know somebody and then they're gone. And you said, hey, why didn't I just stick with the tried and true? The other element is diversification. If you take great hockey teams or basketball teams, there's always that experienced person. You've got hockey
Mhm.
teams with 40-year-old players who really don't play at the level they did or even play as many minutes. But for the
Mhm.
23, 24-year-old kids on the team, they're the father figure. They're the ones
They're the mentors.
who
Yeah.
say, hey, do this, and they're sharing their experience and collectively. There was a team
Yeah.
actually that lost to Oakland in the first round, and it was North Carolina, I believe. And they lost, just by 2 points, and it was a tough game. And it was Coach Calamari, I think, whatever his name was.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I think was it I think you're thinking about,
Kentucky,
is it
maybe. Yeah,
Kentucky?
Kentucky. Yeah,
Kentucky.
but they
Yeah.
call him Coach Cal for the same reason I messed
Yeah.
up his name.
Yeah.
And what he
Calipari, yeah.
said was, I went with all pretty much rookies. 18, if you look at my team, it was all 18 and 19-year-olds. Oakland's
Mhm.
team was 4 years older as a team. The best player
Mhm. Much
was
more mature.
24. And you know what happened in that big game? Two of the rookies went 1 for 10. They scored two
Mhm.
points before the two of them. All season they were scoring 10 or 15, but they've never been in an NCAA tournament prime time, and they didn't
Mhm.
have the maturity and the confidence at 19 that some of these players who would never see themselves as NBA guys stepped
Right.
up in the moment and made it happen. And I think that's
Mhm.
that's a quality you have as a manager or an owner, that hey, when I push down on this pedal, this thing is going to move.
Yeah, the confidence. Yeah, that's the confidence, and it's those people. It costs you from a number standpoint, on average, 50 to 200 times, 200%. Sorry, their annual salary to replace a good person on there on your team. I mean, think about that. The expertise that you're losing, the knowledge, the experience, the people that have been there, done that. Because you can only lead people as far as you've been, Don. You can't lead them where you haven't been yourself. You can't expect these rookies to try to tell people how this is going to feel when they haven't experienced it themselves. And you use one of my favorite expressions about the grass isn't greener on the other side. Why? Because the grass is greener where you water it. And if you pay attention to the people that you have on your team and you show them and make them feel valued, make them feel connected, make them feel productive, that they can contribute from their perspective, and show them that they can learn and grow with you, that's huge. When people understand what their contribution is. I mean, you talk about, again, we're using the sports analogies today, and it's great. I mean, I'm a coach, and this is what I do with my teams. Part of the reason I've had success, and part of the reason I keep turning over good teams, no matter who moves up or who moves away or whatever the case might be, is because I'm constantly cultivating the depth of bench that I have. I'm giving those kids opportunities to play, to get those experiences. I'm not just leaving them on the bench like how it happened to your son, because that is critical. I see a lot of leaders that they're constantly going to the same people over and over and over again. And they keep burning out their best players without ever giving opportunities for some of the others to grow and experience and develop. Is it going to be as good as that top player? Probably not. But you know what? It will get there over time. They might not be able to do it as well as the supervisor can, but guess what? Over time, they'll be able to take on more and more responsibilities. And when you truly need that bench, it'll be there. Otherwise, when your two superstars aren't performing that one night, where are you going to turn to? If you haven't prepared the rest of the team to step up, where are you going to look to? There's nobody there. And that's when you lose the game. So make sure that you consistently water your grass in order for it to be green. That's the key takeaway.
That is a quality takeaway. I hope everybody has written that down. The other element too, when someone leaves you, they just fired you, right?
Mhm.
So if you had a top performer and they just decide, hey, I decided to go across the street, got a better offer, or whatever, you got to ask yourself, well, what didn't work for this person probably isn't going to work for the next person, right? Because I didn't even suspect they were unhappy. I didn't even understand they were looking for another position. And if I would have known, I might have been able to do something, but would have known into what did you do to continually communicate with this person so it never went to the point. And some people listen but don't hear. Some people hear and don't do. And after a while, it takes a lot of courage for someone to walk into someone's supervisor's office and says, I just want to talk to you. I got some issues here. And somebody says, I got issues here. It's like, no, I got issues with you. Or you have no reason to have issues. You're getting paid good money.
Right.
You're getting taken care of. And, it just neglected the human side.
Right.
It's like, hey, what do you got going? What can I help you with? What can we do to make things better together? And if you don't have those collaborative individuals on the team, you're never going to get to that point. So I'd rather have a team of average players who play great together than great players who never pass the ball, want the recognition, want to score all the time. I mean, again, going back to Jokic, nobody's had as many triple doubles. Nobody is always having 12 assists, 15 rebounds, 30 points. Why? Because he knows there's someone either in a better situation than him and he makes sure they get it, or he takes the shots whenever he needs to or wants to. But he's not a one-trick pony. He's not someone who'll score 40 points but never get a rebound, never pass the ball. And, his teammates get better knowing that, hey, if I'm open, I'm going to get it. If he can do something for me, he'll do it. And I think that motivates people to say, maybe I should play unselfishly. Maybe it's a better way. And you know what? When you win together. And I think that's part of winning is the joy of creating an opportunity that wouldn't have been there without everybody being involved in it. So, gosh, it's already 57 minutes. Don't know where the time flies. But, when you have somebody like Con, we could have made a day of it. And we would have still been as fresh in our ideas, maybe not as fresh in our physical presence. But, I learned so much from Con, and I learned so much from Harvey and Kelly and everybody else, because you know what? They've stood the test of time. They continue to show up. They're not like here when the weather's good, and if something's a little sunnier there, that's where they're moving to. And I think not only do they become part of a team, we become part of their team. So it isn't just a one-sided situation. And the thing too about it is when you put your ego away, when you don't worry about yourself so much, and you give other people the time, the consideration, again, you're in a better position because nobody else is really doing those things. No one else is taking that time. And that makes a difference because people, like they say, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care about them. That makes them want to step up and say, he's not this and he's not that, but he's a hell of a lot more than everything else around me. And it motivates people to kind of copy or support you in their own way of doing things. So, Con, final thoughts? I mean, we covered a lot of area, and I want to thank the audience for being so supportive and interactive with us. What can you say in the last minute or so to put the frosting on the cake?
Well, I'll close out with kind of the summary that you've just mentioned about, this collaboration group that we're all part of. And it's a team of superstars in their own right, every one of them. Kelly, Harvey, Beverly, who's going to be with you tomorrow, Carl, Dave, all of the team, amazing people, but they all are engaged and they all want to help each other, all of us, get better at what we're doing. And that comes from the fact that you cultivate that whole relationship and that whole environment, Don. Again, The grass isn't greener on the other side. You don't have to look far from that. The grass is greener where you water it. Make sure that you pay attention to the people that matter in your team. Make sure that you're constantly helping them feel valued, connected, productive, and supported, and they will return that, because everybody that feels appreciated will always do more than what's expected of them.
So well said. And with that, I think we've come to the end of our show. I want to thank everybody. I hope everybody is off to a great start this week. Actually, the poll I did today was, are you excited about the week ahead? Right? It's Monday. And if you're not excited, it's Monday. You have a chance to find a new course, add things, because by Friday you should say, I won. I succeeded in making this a great week. And this week will help me propel myself into the next week. Believe in hope. Hope sometimes is a strategy. And I know people don't like to hear that because maybe they don't engage that themselves. So can't thank you enough. Audience, come back tomorrow. Tomorrow is the lovely, wonderful Beverly Glazer. She's been here every Tuesday, every show on Tuesday, the Women's Empowerment Show. I look up to her because of how much she does, how detailed she is, how serious she is about what she does. She's a true professional. And I refer everybody who's in the group, not because they're in the group, but because they have qualified for the group, to be just outstanding people. So again, with a lot of gratitude, have a wonderful day. Come back in 23 hours if possible, and we'll do it all again. Take care.